Greetings in the name of the Most High Jah Emperor Haile Selassie Jah King Rastafari. Welcome to the first episode of the Check Top Podcast, Season 1. We're going to be going over the 21 steps to financial freedom and generational wealth. So before we get into that, I want to just give an introduction to the podcast. I want to say thank you for tuning in. I will make this podcast because a lot of the times when you watch podcasts about financial literacy or financial education, it's a lot of fluff. It's a lot of information, but not so much useful information to where you hear a lot of things and some things sound good, but is it really practical and can you really apply it to your life? And so this podcast is geared towards solving that problem to where now you can get some financial information that's going to be practical, easy for you to use, easy for you to apply to your everyday life, and to start seeing results instantly. And so I'm not a financial guru. I have a background in tax prep, and I'm going to be giving my experiences also from an entrepreneur lens, because as an entrepreneur, you have to kind of navigate through the financial woes of operating your business, getting funding, and then, just maintaining your lifestyle all in one. And so by doing that over the years, I was able to find things, tools, apps, resources, and things like that that helped me along the way. And I'm going to use that podcast to share that information with you. And also along the way, I found some great apps, tools, and other speakers that gave great information and allowed me to benefit and progress in my situation. So that's also what I want to share with you all in this podcast. And so now, after we got that out the way, is the next thing I want to go to get into is the confusion around economics and finances in general, because they don't really teach you about finances in school. They don't teach you about economics really, about starting a business or anything like that in high school or college. And then also, this lady by the name of Catherine Fitz, who is the director of housing under the first Bush administration. She has an organization called the Solari Report. And so she's basically breaking down that it's two sides to economics. And the first side is the one that they tell us about the stock market. You go to work, get a check, and you invest, and you try to do all of these things to create a financial portfolio and create wealth. But that's only half the story. So she shows the other half is that the black market is what makes the money in America. America profits the most off of human trafficking and narcotics more than any place else in the world. And so Catherine Fitz shows how that human trafficking and that narcotics money also relates to the $1 trillion American deficit, and show how it's just a big money laundering scheme. And so, you have to be real with yourself. And this is the other thing that this podcast is for, so we can clear the lens when it comes to finances so that we can all be real with ourselves. Because a lot of the times, becoming wealthy and successful deals with being able to be disciplined and being able to control your emotions. And so, if you aren't able to control your emotions, then anytime a sale or anything happens that's riveting or that's unexpected, it may get you emotional, and then from being emotional, you turn around and you make illogical decisions. And so we don't want you to be fooled, and we don't want you to have a false sense of reality when it comes to your finances and learning, because in order for you to be successful, you have to be very clear. You have to be very disciplined in knowing what you're doing, and you have to be uh, detailed. So you have to cross your T's and dot your I's. And so now that you understand that it's two sides of the story, and I'm not trying to tell you to, get into the black market or start selling narcotics or start getting into human trafficking. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that it's only so far you can go with the common economic model that they give you, and it's already um, not giving you all the information as it is when it comes to America and how it relates finances to its population in the education system. And so now we're trying to supplement that by giving you real, raw information from the people inside and out, and then also from my personal experience as a tax prep and an entrepreneur. And so now let's get into the meat of it. So the 21 steps to creating generational wealth and financial freedom. I derived these steps based on my search and studying people that I felt that their information benefited me greatly. And so this podcast is not me talking down to you all. This podcast is for us to build a community about finances and finances the right way, a clear lens on our finances and a true reality when it comes to our finances, not being in a fantasy and not being disillusioned, but understanding what we're dealing with as a community and understanding what we're up against as a community so we don't have false notions to where we spend our money under false pretenses. And so, for example, uh, if we're at war, like right now, America is at war. So financially, what does that look for you as an individual? So most people are oblivious to their finances. So they're just going along with their everyday rigmarole, oblivious to the war and everything and what that means in reference to finances and the economy. Okay. So for me personally, I understand that in a time of war, that's when the military industrial complex makes a money grab, makes a money play, because war is money. And so this is what I mean about we can't be confused about finances and the reality of what's going on. Because see, now if you just oblivious to what's going on, you're missing the opportunity. That's war. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that I'm for war or I'm promoting war or that I'm against war. The war isn't the issue. The finances and how war relates to finances is the issue. And so now you see that several Congress members invested in several different stocks pertaining to war, nuclear energy, and things like that before the onset of the war, before Trump gave the strike. And so therefore, war is going to increase the stocks that deal with war and energy and things like that. So the same way the people in Congress got those stocks before the war, or the onset of the war, what were you doing? Did you get any stocks? You see what I'm saying? And how does that relate to you in reference to your home, your homestead, your resources, just in case the war hits home? So it's things like this that we're going to use this podcast for, so where we can use our community, we can use current events and just our situation as a whole to figure out what's the right way to treat our finances and to grow our finances for financial freedom and generational wealth. And so the last point before we get into the meat of it is that in these times, we see that there's a transition going on from the practical world to the digital and virtual world, part of it. And so these steps are going to show you how to become independent in the practical world. You see what I'm saying? Because if you tie into the virtual world, you understand what that means. The virtual world is where you lose your control and your power, because the virtual world will be controlled by AI. And so once you give your life away, the more you give your life away to the virtual world, the more power you give away to the AI. You see what I'm saying? So that goes with cryptocurrency, virtual reality, things like that. And so Catherine Fitch from the Solari Report, she goes into depth with that. And so also, I don't want you to just listen to me. and take what I'm saying on face value. I want you to go do your own search because, again, this is a community. So if something that I say helps you, then please leave a comment and share for someone else. Or if something that I says doesn't work for you and something else worked for you, then please share that too, because again, it's a community. And even though what I'm saying may not have helped you, what you said in response to that may help someone else. And so that's the whole purpose of, the community chiming in and we together as a community agreeing on our best course to financial freedom and generational wealth. And so now I'm going to start with the 21 steps. I'm just going to list them, speak on them briefly, and then each subsequent podcast episode is going to deep dive into each step by step. Okay? And so let's get started. The first step one, well, let's write it down. 21 steps. Financial freedom. Generational wealth. Now, most people don't understand that you can't have wealth without generations. And so that's why family is important. And so for the Black community, a lot of the children have been raised outside of a family, outside of a married couple. They were born out of wedlock, or they were born um, not knowing who their parents were, or not raised by both of their parents, or maybe raised by their grandparents. So therefore, the generational wealth missed them because they weren't able to create a family and then pass on a legacy to the next generation. And so you can get rich on your own, but you can't get wealthy without a family. And so that's why family is important, and that's why marriage is important, because marriage and family is the road to wealth, and you can't get there without family. Okay? And so the first step is going to be charity. Now, the first step is charity because you all know you have to what? You have to give before you can receive. And then also charity puts you in the mind state of abundance. Because if you don't start with charity, then you start in the mind frame of lack and hunger and survival. You see? So for example, if let's say you lost your job and you got bills coming up. Now that pressure from those bills are automatically going to give you anxiety. And from that anxiety and being all emotional and stressed, you're going to make poor decisions. You see what I'm saying? But in a charitable mind frame, no matter if you have a job or if you don't have a job, you can always be charitable. And then from being charitable, it helps you get a grasp on your value, because you may help somebody out on a farm and you never dealt with a farm before, but you wanted to be charitable and you see that the farm was looking for volunteers, so you tried it out. And now you discovered that you are really good with agriculture and botany and things like that. You see what I'm saying? Now you know you have value. And then also charity, by helping out on the farm, you may meet somebody that knows somewhere that has a job opening that can get you hired, even though you just lost your job. So charity opens up networking opportunities. You see what I'm saying? And then charity also gives you value in the sense of maybe not monetary payout, but it also gives you the value in form of favors. And a lot of times favors can be more valuable than financial payout, because certain favors that you're granted, you can't pay for. You're only being granted that because of your value or something that you brought to the table. And so this is why being charitable is the first step. Now, in being charitable, you want to be charitable in the sense that you help people that you feel that can help you as well. And even though sometimes you may help people that cannot help you, that's fine too. But you have to have a balance, because if you only help people that can't help you, when you need help, you won't have anybody to help you, because you only help those who can't help you. You see what I'm saying? But if you help everyone, if you help those that can help you, and then you also help those that can help you. If you come into a situation where you need help, the ones that you help that can help you more than likely will be able to support you. You see what I'm saying? And so in everything you have to do, you have to understand that there's a balance. It's a good and it's a bad. You see what I'm saying? So with charity, you don't want to overextend yourself to where you lose. But you in charity, you have to understand that it's not about money all the time. Sometimes it's about a favor. Sometimes it's about getting in good graces. Sometimes it's about networking. Sometimes it's just about keeping your morale up, keeping it moving. You see what I'm saying? And then the main thing is that your mind frame is open. So instead of you being in a mind frame of lack and fear and doubt, you're in a mind frame of abundance because you know that someone needs some help. And if you don't got nothing else better to do with your time, you can go out there and be that help that someone needs. And then from there, no good deed goes unrewarded. No deed at all, good or bad, goes unrewarded. So you get out what you put in. All right. And so now we're going to go to the next step. Give me 1 second because I don't got it all written down. And like I said, this is not etched in stone. If y'all know something better, and by all means, please share it because it's a community. I'm just trying to give us a blueprint that we can follow, but it doesn't have to be set in stone. If somebody has something better, then we can put it together, like, share, comment, and if we agree that that's better, then we can go with that. But the main thing is let's work together and get our finances together because the reason finances is so important is that when you go to a job, right, you can have a Nazi there, you can have a homosexual there, you can have a Muslim there, you can have a Christian there, you can have a Buddhist there, but no matter who's there, they're all working together. They all put their differences aside to come together and work. You know why? Because they're on the clock, because they're dealing with finances. And so finances are revolutionary in the sense that you can provide jobs, you can provide opportunity, and you can cross a lot of different borders and barriers that you normally wouldn't without resources. And so therefore, this podcast is more important than we think, that we understand right now. And that's why it's important for us as a community to chime in and work together so that we can get a grasp on finances and make that the norm for our communities. All right, so the next step is income. All right. And so most people probably be thinking like, duh, income, but there's two types of income. And without the second type, you would never get rich. Okay. So there's regular income and then there's passive income. Okay. So without passive income, you can't get rich. And remember, without a family, you can't get wealthy. Okay. So if you don't take anything else away from this, just make sure you know passive income to get rich and a family to get wealthy. Okay. So now passive income, the difference between regular income and passive income is that regular income, you have to work to make money. Passive income is you take the money that you work for and put that money to work for you. So once you put your money to work for you, whether you're working or not, your money's still working, making money for you. So that's why it's passive, because you don't have to work. You can go and be passive somewhere while your money is being aggressive working. Okay. So in the podcast, when we get to this episode of income, we're going to deal with different ways of getting income, regular and passive. There's ways that you can make money on your phone. It's a lot of opportunity now with AI that you can make money. You can always get a job, and then there's several different hustles and stuff that they got now with the drop shipping and all the different type of products online and stores like Amazon and stuff, making it easy for you to set up an e-commerce store and do drop ships. So the main thing is to set up at least 3 streams of income, and out of those 3 streams of income, you need at least 1 passive stream. You see what I'm saying? And so the passive income, like I said, is how you're going to get rich, how it's going to allow you to free up your time to where you can do more search about finances and more search about your personal situation financially, and then see what you can do to improve it. You see what I'm saying? And so now, like I said, I'm going into depth on each episode, but I'm just want to list it right now in the introduction episode so we can get everybody up to date, up to speed of what we're going to do and what the podcast is going to be about. All right, so number 3 is budgeting. Okay, and so budgeting is important because a lot of the times when you're in the dark about your money, you make poor decisions. And the system is set up for you to make poor decisions. So, for example, a debit card, by definition, is a credit card. And a credit card, by definition, is a debit card. So let me explain. When you have your debit card, you actually have credits on that. Because when you spend the money on your debit card, you don't have to pay that back. So that's actually credits. You see what I'm saying? Because it's in the positive. But the trick is with the debit card, that's really a credit card, is that when you use a debit card, unlike spending cash, you don't really know your balance. You don't know what's left on your balance. So for example, if I have $100 cash and I go to a store and I spend $20, then I know how much cash I got left. You see what I'm saying? But if I go to the debit card, if I use my debit card and I spend $20, and I didn't check my balance before I spent the $20, and then I go make another transaction without checking my balance, then now I don't know how much money I have, but I'm spending money in the blind. And so the debit card is designed to trick you up, to trip you up. And so you don't want to spend it like a debit card. You see what I'm saying? The debit card makes you spend it like a credit card when really the credit card puts you in debt and the debit card is your credit. You see what I'm saying? So for the sake of confusion, the debit card is designed for you to spend money in the blind. You see what I'm saying? And so this is where the budgeting comes in. The budgeting takes you out the blind, not only just with your debit card, but with your total financial picture. So you're budgeting, you have to know where your money's coming in, you have to know where it's going out. You have to know when it comes in. You have to know how much is coming in. And then you have to know from how much coming in and how much going out, how much is left over. And then from the money that you have left over, that's the money that you use to build your financial empire. And so that's why budget is important, because if you have money coming in, money going out, and you're not tracking it, then you're just going through the circle, you're going through the motions. You're not disciplining yourself, and you're not setting the foundation for yourself to grow and get rich. You're just turning circles. But the budgeting allows you to track your money down, and even if it's only $5 every pay period that you have left over, you can put that $5 to work and make that $5 work for you. And it may not seem like a lot at first, but just keep going, being consistent, being disciplined. It adds up over time. And then as long as you got your money working for you on the side and you working too, you're still trying to get promotions. You're still trying to advance yourself in your workplace and in your career. But on the other end, you got your money working for you too. It's working together. And this is how you build your financial portfolio and work your way up to success, rich and wealthy. All right. So after budgeting, we're going to go to step 4, which is banking. Okay. Now, banking is important because the same way the debit card is designed to trip you up, the banks are designed to trip you up too, if you're not smart. And so it's important to choose the right banking partner, because you have to be aware of the fees, the scheduling, as far as if you write a check, how does that look? If you do a debit card transaction, how does that look? And when I say how does that look, I mean, how long does that take to process in your account? And what's the protocol when it comes to overdraft fees and things like that? You see what I'm saying? And so not only am I going to have suggestions for things that you can do for charity. I'm gonna have suggestions for ways that you can make income. I'm gonna have suggestions for budgeting tools you can use, and I'm also gonna have banking suggestions. And so the suggestions that I have, they will be listed in the description of the video. And then if you click on the link and you move forward with any of the products that I suggest, that helps the channel out. And then also, it's always something in there for you too as well by using that link. And so most time when you deal with banking, you want to deal with a bank that has no fees, no overdraft fees. A lot of the banks now, if you have direct deposit, they can give you a payday advance. And then a lot of the banks now have financial tools to help you keep a track of your budget and things like that too. So those are the banks that I'm going to suggest to you so that you can choose the right partner for success. All right, and so the next step is going to be, after banking comes taxes. And now taxes is one of those things to where it has a bad it has a bad stigma to it, because in all actuality it's illegal. By the Constitution, only the Congress is supposed to set taxes, but the federal government is a private institution that's comprised of several major banks. And again, Catherine Fitz from the Solari report goes into this, how the federal bank works and what it breaks down to and everything like that. And so the taxes part is important because even though it's illegal, they enforce it, and they enforce it with jail time and, garnishing your wages and seizing your property. So therefore, you want to stay ahead of the game so you don't get tripped up. You see what I'm saying? And now, like we said, it's two sides to everything. So even though taxes have a bad stigma associated with it, taxes can also be a good thing, in the reference that taxes allow you to recoup some of the money that you paid out by itemizing things that are able to be written off. So the main thing about taxes is itemizing. You see what I'm saying? Now, the other benefits of taxes is that it shows proof of income and it's a paper trail. So in the event that you need to buy a house or a car, now by keeping your taxes up to date, you have a paper trail of your income, and that makes the process that much more easier, the buying process that much more easier. So that's another benefit of having your taxes done and having your taxes up to date. And then the other part about having your taxes done, especially when you're a business owner and you want to go get funding, having your taxes up to date makes it easy for you to get funding in the reference of grants and getting approved for lines of credit and loans and things of that nature. So that's why taxes is important, because it saves you money by writing off things that you can itemize. Like, for example, if you have a job, you had to go buy some work clothes, and then you have to take your work clothes to the cleaners, and then you have to drive to work, and then you eat out while you're at work. All of those things can be written off. You see what I'm saying? So you can write off your travel expenses, the wear and tear on your car for your job. You can write off the food that you eat while you're at work that you have to pay for. You can write off your cleaning bill because you have to clean your uniform, and you can write off your uniform that you had to go pay for yourself. So you can get all of this money back in write-offs at the end of the year when you file your taxes. So this is why taxes is important. Like I said, I'm gonna do a deep dive on each topic in each subsequent video, but I'm just trying to list it today so everybody can get it on board and see what's going on. All right. So step 6 is emergency fund. All right. Now the emergency fund is important because in life there's an ebb and flow. Life is based on rhythm. Ups and downs, good and bad. It's the cycles of life, yin and yang. And so therefore, in life, you're going to have an emergency. It's not just going to be up, 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 up. It's going to be up, down, up, down, up, down. So when you deal with finances, it's important to understand this and deal with your finances in a way that you're already prepared for the downs. So that way when you go up or whether you go down, either way, you could stay level and keep moving forward towards your progress to financial freedom and generational wealth. And so this is where the emergency fund comes in at. So that way, while you're getting your money and you're putting your plan together and you're making your steps and you moving forward and you're getting progress, you always put something aside for the rainy day because you know it's coming. And so what happens if you don't set up an emergency fund? Let's say instead of setting an emergency fund up, you do something like you buy gold, you invest in gold, or you invest in stocks or something like that instead of setting an emergency fund up. What happens is that like that gold that you buy and that stock that you buy, that ends up becoming your emergency fund. Because when the emergency happens and you don't have anywhere to go, now you have to sell that gold. Now you have to cash out on those stocks so that you can take care of this emergency. And now that's self-defeating because you bought that gold and you bought those stocks as a mean of investments, as a mean of assets, as a mean of having your money work for you instead of you having to work for the money. But now that you didn't have an emergency fund, you have to start that whole system over. So now you lost your passive income base because you didn't prepare an emergency fund. You see what I'm saying? Versus if you did have an emergency fund, you can still keep your money working for you and take care of your emergency until you can get your main income situation back on board. You see what I'm saying? And so that's why the emergency fund is important because it's going to keep you level. Because in life, you know there's going to be an emergency. All right. So now let's go to the next step, which is personal credit. All right. And now personal credit is one of those topics that is oversaturated online. And then a lot of times, like I said, when you go look at those videos and listen to people talk about personal credit, it's a whole bunch of fluff and it's a whole bunch of generic random information that you can't really apply to your life and doesn't really push your uh, goalposts forward as far as what you try to accomplish. And so now, when it comes to the check guide in reference to personal credit, we want to make sure that you understand what credit really is and don't be confused, and therefore you can get the most out of your credit experience versus it making you a victim like it's designed to do. And so now, remember what we said that by definition, a credit card is really a debt card. It's not credit. You know, credit is something that, like say, when you get your check, that's a credit. When you work and they pay you, that's a credit for the time that you already put in. So when you go spend your money from your check, you don't owe anybody. You know, you spend the money and you get what you pay for, that's that. So that's a credit by definition. But see, the credit card is a debt card by definition because when you spend it, you go in debt. So for example, if you take your credit card and you go to the grocery store, you get what you want, but you still got to pay the credit card. You see what I'm saying? The transaction isn't done. Yeah, you got what you want. You purchased the product, but the transaction isn't done because now you owe after that transaction. Versus if you use the money that you work for and you go to the grocery store and you buy something, once you purchase it, the transaction is over. You see what I'm saying? And so for personal credit, what we're going to show you with the check guide is the credit equation. So the credit equation is $100 plus $1,000 credit limit on a credit card equals negative $900. Okay, so this is the main thing that we're going to be showing you about personal credit so that you don't get it confused and you don't fall into the trap that is designed to trap you in. Okay, so see, most people think that if they got $1,000 credit card or they got a credit card with $1,000 credit limit on it, that they got $1,000. But that's not so. What you have is $1,000 in debt. So if you only got $100 cash, now that you got that $1,000 credit card, you really only got a negative $900. Because if you spend that $1,000 credit card, when it's time to pay the credit card, you only got $100, and then you still gonna have a negative $900 that you owe on that credit card balance. And so the purpose of this equation is to show you that you don't need to use a credit card unless you have the cash equivalent of the credit card. You see what I'm saying? So that means that now, instead of it being $1,000, instead of it being, pardon me one second, I was looking for the, don't worry about it. So instead of it being $100 plus $1,000 credit limit equal negative 900, now you break even. So if you got $1,000 cash and $1,000 credit, you really breaking even. You really don't got nothing. You see what I'm saying? Because when you spend that $1,000 credit, you're gonna have to take the cash that you got and put it back on the credit card. So now you're not gonna have nothing but $1,000 in debt after you spend your cash and put it on the credit card. You see what I'm saying? And so basically, not to get too in depth with it today, I just want to try to break it down to kind of give you a synopsis of what's going on. And then now you can do your own search also. So by the time you get to the episode that's speaking on each topic, you've already got a little background yourself. And then again, it's a community. So don't just sit back and wait to see what I'm going to say about it. Be proactive. Go out, do your own search, and then you may have some help and information that can help the community as well that you can share and that we can add here that helps everybody out. Okay? And so now after the personal credit, then you have the emergency credit card. Okay? And usually you want to use your first credit card as the emergency credit card. And then your second credit card you want to use, for your daily transactions. Okay? Now the emergency credit card is basically like the emergency fund. You know the emergency is going to happen. So therefore, along your journey, you do things like have an emergency fund and then also an emergency credit card for those rainy days. So that way, when it does go down, you can stay level and you can keep progressing forward towards your financial goals, financial freedom, and generational wealth. You don't have to pause or you don't have to take a step back. You can keep moving consistently. And so that's what the emergency credit card is about. And again, I'm going to go more into depth on, how to use it and how to get approved for credit on each episode. I'm just giving the outline so we can get an idea of what's going on. And I want everybody to know what the 21 steps are so that you can start using it. Even though I haven't broke each step down, you can start using it as far as researching each step yourself, see what comes up for you, see what works for you. And then again, you can come give your feedback to the community, and that information may be able to help us as well. So this is the whole purpose. I want to make sure everybody's on board. Let's keep it going. Number 9. Number 9 is what I call SPOMO. And what SPOMO stands for is spend money on money. Okay? Now, if you don't spend money on money, when you spend your money, it's gone. If you spend your money on money, after you spend your money, you still have some money. May sound a little confusing at first, but that's what we're here for, okay? Now, the SPOMO, a good example of SPOMO is, you have $1,000 cash and you have $1,000 credit. So you have a bill for $900. Let's say you got a car note for $400 and you got insurance for $300. Okay, let's say $700. Now, instead of you taking your hard-earned cash, you just got paid. And now, as soon as you get paid and they go back out, you can't make no money like that. That's the debt cycle. Money come in, go out. That's the debt cycle. You can't make no money like that. Okay. So what we're here to do is show you how to break the debt cycle. And how you break the debt cycle is by spending money on money, by holding on to your money longer. Because if it takes you 14 days to get paid, but when you get paid, your money is gone the same day, that's not sustainable. Okay. So if it takes you 14 days to get paid, the money that you get paid on that 14th day should last at least 14 days till you get paid again, because that's how long it took you to make it. So it should last that long too. And this is how you get out of the debt cycle, by making your money last longer than it would if you don't have type of structure and foundation set up, and you just out here falling into the traps like everybody else. And so now, if you get paid and you got to pay your car note and your insurance, you use the credit card. Okay? So you take that money that you got paid, you put that in your pocket, and you take your credit card and you swipe for your insurance and your car note. Now you get paid. Most people get paid either every 7 days or every 14 days, but your credit card bill is due only once a month. Okay? So now you put your paid money in your pocket and you pay your bill for the month. Okay? So now what you want to do with that money in your pocket is you want to invest it. You want to make some passive income with it. You want to save something for your emergency fund. You know, you want to do some things with that money. You want to put that money to work for you, so that when it's time to pay your credit card bill, or when you get paid again in the next 14 days, now you got some motion going. Versus if you just took that money as soon as you got paid and pay your insurance in your car, now you ain't got no motion. You see what I'm saying? And now you're not in a position to set aside for emergency funds, set aside for something to invest, set aside for some passive income. So this is what the SPOMO means. The SPOMO is going to show you how when you spend your money, you're going to spend it to pay the credit card bill. And then when you spend it to pay the credit card bill, now you have access to them funds on the credit again. You know what I'm saying? When you spend your money, you're going to spend it on something that you invested in. So after you spend your money, now you got an asset that's valuable that you can cash out and get more money from. So this is what I mean by SPOMO. You only spending money on assets, not liabilities. You see what I'm saying? And not to say that you don't ever buy anything that's a liability, because sometimes you just want to have fun. Sometimes you got to celebrate and enjoy yourself, and that's fine. But you want to at least make sure that you're not spending your hard-earned money, and the money that you are using to celebrate with and to wind down with is money that you've made from profiting, passive income, from having proper money literacy, financial literacy, and proper money practices and discipline. Now that you've put yourself in a position to where you got profit, to where you can go out and kick it and kick back and have a good time, and it doesn't mess up your progress, then yeah, that's fine. But you don't want to do that unless you've already got these systems in play, because, like I said, the emotions and wanting to celebrate and everything can lead you back to brokenness. And then now you got to start all the way over on your path to financial freedom and generational wealth. Okay? And so now after SPOMO, number 10 is going to be Index Universal Life Insurance. Now most people never even heard of this. Index Universal Life Insurance. Most people just know about the regular life insurance. Because again, everything is designed for you to lose in this society. It's not designed for you to win. Because if you win, then the people who are in control of these institutions in society, they're going to lose. So that's why they want you to lose, so they can win. But if you want to win, then you have to pay attention and don't fall into the traps that they set out there for you to lose. So instead of just getting regular life insurance, that's really death insurance. You see what I'm saying? Because you don't get to use it until you die. You see how everything is just confusing? Like they name it one thing, but by definition, it really means the opposite. So regular life insurance is just death insurance, because you can't use that until you die. But Index Universal Life Insurance is actually real life insurance, because you can use this life insurance while you're alive. So most of the times, depending on your policy, you may have to make on-time payments for 2 years, and then after the second year, you'll be able to take out loans from your insurance policy. So for example, if you have a $100,000 Index Universal Life Insurance policy, that policy may cost you anywhere between $100 and $300 a month, you know. And again, you have to do your own search to see what works best for you. Everything doesn't work for everybody. Everything isn't for everyone. So you have to see what works best for you. So everything that I'm sharing with you is based on my experiences and the information that I've seen beneficial from the people that I learned from. Okay, and I'm going to share those people like Catherine Fitz and other people that I'm going to bring up later on in the podcast as a reference for you to go do your search and study so you can get an understanding of your financial situation and how it relates to the information that I'm sharing with you and how it can help you benefit. And then again, it's a community. So we want you to share your information too, share things that help you too, so that we can all benefit from it. Because I know that I don't know it all, but together we can. We can know everything together. And so the Index Universal Life Insurance is instead of you going to the bank to take out a loan for a house or going to the bank to take out a loan for a car, you just go to your own insurance policy, take out that loan, and then now you pay your insurance policy and the house off at the same time, or the insurance policy and the car off at the same time. And then we're going to show you how that ties into the trust and the trust fund. Because even though you can still take out the policy, take out loans on the policy while you're alive, you still also get a payout upon death. And then if you use that payout in the trust, then that payout can be transferred into what's called a trust fund. But that's later down the line. So let's just keep it simple. And like I said, I'm just showing you the steps and giving you a brief synopsis, but I'm going to go into depth on each topic on its own episode subsequently. But right now, we just listen to steps so everybody can get abreast of what's going on and what we're doing. Okay, so the next thing after you got all of this set up, this is basically your personal life. Okay, this is the steps that you're going to need for your personal life to become financially stable and to set yourself on the path to financial freedom and generational wealth. Okay, so now the next step is now, like the Bible says, you have to be fruitful and multiply. So you can only do so much as an individual. And so that's why the next step is multiplying yourself by creating a business. And so step 11 is incorporating / LLC. Okay. Now this is the start of building your empire. You see, to where now, if you buy a house as an individual, that's just a residential. But if you buy a property as a business, that's commercial. You see what I'm saying? And so as a residential, you're a consumer. As a commercial, you have assets and you're a functioning business, meaning that you're generating income. You see what I'm saying? And so also the LLC separates your personal assets from your business assets. And that's important too as you start to build your financial portfolio and build your assets and things like that. You want to keep everything separate in the case that you have any legalese issues. All of your assets won't be available to support the issue. Only your personal assets will be available if it's a personal issue, and only your business assets will be available if it's a business issue. So that's why it's important to incorporate, because now you can multiply yourself and make yourself bigger than what you would normally be able to do as an individual, separate your money, and then it puts you in a position to where now, instead of you being a consumer, you can generate money. All right. And so the next step after you incorporate is business banking. Okay. So you want to make sure that, again, you pick the right banking partner. Okay. Because they have a lot of fees, and the same thing with personal banking. The same thing with business banking. You got to know when the fees coming in. You got to know all of the ins and outs of the bank account that you're working with. And then a lot of times, because more people have been speaking up about the predatory practices of big banks. So a lot of new fintech companies are coming in with banks that have no fees and have a lot of things that are more beneficial than what's provided from the traditional big bank. So those are the type of things that we're going to be sharing with you as reference to business banking, showing you the different options out there. And again, you have to use what works best for you because everything doesn't work for everyone the same way. Something might work for you, it might not work for me, and vice versa. So that's why don't just listen to the information I'm sharing. Do your own search. And again, your feedback is value here. So we want the information that works for you. We want you to share that with us so we can kind of help everybody. And so now after you get your business banking, what you have to do is crowdfunding. Okay. And see, they're not going to teach you this type of stuff in school. You see, and even when you go to college, they don't teach you this type of stuff. And so the crowdfunding is how you get over the hump. You see what I'm saying? That's how you start breaking into real money. That's how you raise your tax bracket. That's how you get to the top of the mountain. Okay. Now, crowdfunding is important in so many reasons. Now, the first reason that it's important is because it builds a community. You understand? And so the community is the power. Just like how they used to say, power in the people, you know? So the people is power. It's power in numbers. And this is what the community is about. And this is what crowdfunding is about. Okay? So now, crowdfunding, how it typically works is that you as an individual have a good concept and you feel like your concept is good for the community and it helps out everyone, but you don't have the resources to bring it into fruition. So what you do is you organize your concept as best as you could. For example, you get the logo and you get some merchandise with the logo on and everything. You get a website, and then you may print out some media with information describing your idea or your product or your service, whatever it is, giving people in-depth background on you as an individual, how you represent yourself, what you stand for, and how that relates to your product or idea or service that you want to get out there. And then you show how it's going to benefit people once it is a real thing, once you do bring it to life. And so once you do that, you start asking for donations, but you also have tiers set up to where, depending on the level that they pledge their donation at, they get a gift, complimenting their pledge, and the gift complements with level that they pledge at. That's the type of stuff that you want to do to set up your crowdfunding campaign. But again, the crowdfunding is important because when you build a community, and also with the crowdfunding, you build a community around your particular product or service. So that community is what's going to support your product or service for the rest of this life. You see what I'm saying? Because once you get people to buy into your concept and they invest in it, now they feel they have ownership in it because they were a part of the inception of the product or the idea or the service or the business. So now when they invest in it and then years later they see it, they're still going to support it because again, they have tied interest in it, they're vested in it. So when you build when you do your crowdfunding campaign, not only are you raising funds to bring your idea, product, or service into fruition, you're also building your core market and your core community around your product service that's going to keep your business afloat for longevity. So that's the importance of crowdfunding. All right, let's keep moving to the next step. So the next step after crowdfunding is, drum roll. After crowdfunding is business credit. Okay. And now the same way you got personal credit, you got business credit. You see what I'm saying? And so the same way that the personal credit is set up to trick you, the same way the business credit is set up to trick you. Because again, The credit card, by definition, is a debt card because you don't have credits on there. Credits is something that's positive. You see what I'm saying? If you're accredited, that means you're giving something positive. Debt is negative. So when you use your credit card, you're going into debt. So it's not a credit card by definition. It's really a debt card. Okay. But for sake of simplicity, the business credit, we're going to teach you similar things that relate to the personal credit. You see what I'm saying? And then also we're going to show you the benefits of having business credit and the different types of business credit. Okay, there's 3 types of business credit. All right. So we're going to break down each one, and we're going to show you how to acquire business credit for your business, no matter what stage you're at financially. And so the crowdfunding and the business credit ties hand in hand, because once you start getting the community involved in your product, service, and business, and you can start getting them to donate to the business, you don't want to touch those donations until you've reached your goal so that you can do exactly what you said you're going to do. But in the meantime, over here. Yeah, over here. So in the meantime, you may have the need to use those resources. And so now you can use the crowdfunding funds to acquire business credit. And that gives you the opportunity to still operate your business without having to touch that crowdfunding money until you reach your goal. And then if your business isn't in operation yet, then you don't want to use the business credit, even though you can get the business credit established simultaneously while you're doing your crowdfunding campaign. You know that the business credit is debt. So we don't want to use the business credit even though we have it established and even though we have the crowdfunding money. Because even though the crowdfunding money isn't debt, it already has an allotted location and destination. So you don't want to build up debt based off the crowdfunding money when you're not going to be able to use that crowdfunding money to pay off the debt, because the crowdfunding money already has a destination. The destination is based on whatever you set the parameters of the crowdfunding for. You know what I'm saying? So establish the business credit simultaneously. But again, if you are already operating your business, then you don't want to use that business credit until you go into operation. Meaning that if you got the business credit and you're doing the crowdfunding at the same time, but you haven't gone into business yet, when you get the crowdfunding campaign complete, and then you're ready to say let's say you, for example, you did the crowdfunding to buy a location. So now when you get the crowdfunding campaign complete, you don't take that money to go buy the location. You take the business credit that you established to buy the location, and then now you have the funding to pay the business credit off to keep your business afloat, to keep your books balanced, and to honor what you said you want to do with the crowdfunding campaign. And so that's how the business credit ties into it. And then it goes more in depth, but I'm just trying to give you a brief synopsis of what's going on and why those steps are in the order that they're in and how it relates to the whole path to financial freedom and generational wealth. Okay. So now we got the business credit. So then real quick, emergency business credit card. Okay. So the same way you need emergency personal credit card, you got emergency business credit card, because the same way life personally is going to have ups and downs, your business is going to have ups and downs. Okay, and that's why you have the business credit card. Should be pretty simple, should be pretty self-explanatory. So we're going to slide right through that one. And then now with the 16 is business FOMO. So the same way, if it take you 14 days to get your check and you spend it the same day you get paid, you're not going to be able to sustain like that. In the same way, if it took you 10 days to complete a project for a client, but as soon as you got paid for that project, the money is gone instantly, you're not going to be able to sustain your business like that. And so Business FOMO, personal FOMO is similar. Again, we're going to go into detail and give each topic its own episode. I'm just listing everything today so we can see what's going on. All right. And so now number 17 is the trust. And see, most people don't understand trust, especially in the impoverished communities, and they don't understand trust as it relates to generational wealth. And again, a lot of the time, impoverished communities, those people come from broken homes, broken families, and therefore they don't have a concept of wealth because they weren't inherited anything. They didn't receive any assets or income or anything from their previous generations. And so therefore they don't understand generational wealth, or they don't understand trust. And even though they may have come from a good family and everything, they still may not understand trust because, again, that's not taught in schools and things like that. And this is what the podcast is for, to bring this type of information to the community, to the everyday person, so that we can benefit and also set ourselves up for success in the future for financial freedom and generational wealth. So, again, trust is going to have its own video where we can deep dive into trust and what it means and how it's beneficial. But real quick, the trust separates your business and your personal into even another line of separation, into another entity. So remember where we said the incorporation LLC separates your personal money from your business money. So now your trust is going to separate your personal money from your business money. And then as a benefactor of the trust can pay you, to where your personal money pays the trust, your business money pays the trust, and then your trust turns around and pay you. So now you create another lane of separation. And then by doing so, you offset taxes. So for example, if someone gives me $1 million, then I may have to pay $300,000 in taxes. But if someone gives my trust $1 million, trust, they only have to pay $10,000 in taxes. You see what I'm saying? Because personally, the personal profit tax is different from the trust profit tax. You see what I'm saying? Now, again, I'm not a lawyer, and the laws are different per each state. For the trust laws, as well as other laws, as far as how it relates to your property, how it relates to taxes and everything like that. So again, you have to do your own search. I don't have all the answers. I'm just giving you an outline so that now, instead of going blind in the dark, you have an outline that you can use to search and do your research with. And it's step by step in sequential order, so that you don't have to get ahead of yourself. Or if you have some of these steps already behind you, then you know the next step is. You're not just lost and blind and don't know where to go. Now you know what to do next. You see what I'm saying? And so the trust basically is to separate everything. And then also the main importance of the trust before we go to the next step is that in society, when you sign over your child to the birth certificate, what that does is that makes your child property of the state. And so that's why when you die, your state automatically assumes your property. And then they give your heirs the chance to claim their inheritance if they have the proper funds, if they have the court fees, if they have the lawyer fees, if they have the inheritance tax, if they have the remaining balance on the property itself, or any other arrears that may be associated with the property. Now, if you can pay all of that, then they'll honor your inheritance. But if you can't pay all of that, then they're going to assume the property because it's already theirs based on your birth certificate and you being awarded a state. So what the trust does is the trust offsets that, because when you die, the property has to change ownership. And in that change of ownership is
where the courts are allowed to come in and assume the property. You see what I'm saying? So the trust takes you out of that loop, because now when you put the property in the ownership of the trust, even though you die as a physical person, the trust doesn't die. So therefore, the property doesn't have to change ownership. So therefore, you don't have to pay any more taxes or anything like that, because there hasn't been any transition. It's the same owner and it's the same property. You see what I'm saying? So the trust omits a whole lot of that rigmarole that you have to go through unnecessarily because of the change of property and the taxes and everything that's associated with it. You see what I'm saying? And so now we're going to go into detail about the trust, the benefactor, the trustee, and everything like that on this own episode. But I'm just trying to give you a brief synopsis of what's going on and list everything so you can get an idea of what the podcast is going to be about and how it's going to benefit you. And so now, after you set up the trust, then you're going to need a trust fund. Okay? Because the trust fund is how you pay the benefactors. The trust fund is how you pay yourself. Because again, if you're putting your personal income into the trust, you're putting your business income into the trust, then you have to get some income out to live. So therefore, you have to have the trust fund to take that income from your personal business and then turn it into a payout for you. You see what I'm saying? And so now, typically how the trust fund is set up is that whoever is the main benefactor of the trust. So whoever sets up the trust, they set the parameters. So it's fluid based on however you set it up. So for example, if I have a trust and I have 2 children, I can set the trust up to say, okay, when I die, my children can only access the trust fund if they graduate college and they get married. If they don't graduate college, they don't get married, then I want my trust to donate the funds to this charity. You see what I'm saying? So you can set the trust up any way that you want to do. That was just an example. You see what I'm saying? So the trust fund is set up by, now when I die, I have my index universal life insurance policy. Remember? So now when I die, my policy goes into the trust and creates the trust fund. And now remember, the index universal life insurance policy is like a bank, because you can take out loans from the policy, and as long as you pay the policy, you pay your loan and you pay your policy at the same time. And so now, let's say if you are married, now when you pass and your spouse passes, both of those insurance policies combined go into the trust, along with the assets that y'all acquire, your house, your cars, anything like that. All that combined goes into the trust and the trust fund to leave for the next generation. So the trust is how you solidify generational wealth. Okay? The family is how you establish it, and the trust is how you solidify to make sure that it's passed on to each generation, even after you're gone, without any hiccups. You see what I'm saying? So that's what the trust is for. And the trust fund from those insurance policies and all the assets of the trust creates a trust fund that can pay out the benefactors based on the parameters of the trust. Okay, so now we're going to keep it moving. I'm just breaking it down, giving you a brief synopsis of the steps so you know what's going on. Now, after the trust fund, you're ready to set up your family. You see what I'm saying? Because now you got something to pass on to your family. You know, you just ain't making a family just to be out here willy-nilly and say you got a family and all that. No, your family really means something. And so at one time, as a population, we had an understanding that family is business. And that's why you see a lot of the major corporations are families, like JCPenney, Nordstrom, Macy's, JP Morgan, Chase. All of these are family names. Walmart. All of these are family businesses, and a lot of them have the family name attached to the business. You see what I'm saying? Because the family is supposed to be the business. The family, your children are supposed to be your employees. It's easier to hire your children and just let them live for you for free and make them work and feel like they earning their keep than you to go hire somebody else and have to pay them outright. You see what I'm saying? The family. So at one time we knew that if you have a farmland, your children are an asset. But how they tricked us, because the society is designed to trick you. When you left the farm and you moved to the city, now your child is a liability. See, on the farm, your child is free labor. But in the city, your child is a liability because now they're a fee. Now it's going to be so much more charges associated with you being a parent, having a child in the city, that your child becomes a liability because you have to pay for food. Whether if they was on the farm, if they growing their food, so they're gonna eat what they grow. You see what I'm saying? You have to pay for daycare. If they're on the farm, it's a family already on the farm, so you don't got to pay for daycare. It's already grown people out there, and everybody working together. The child already being watched. You see what I'm saying? And so just those two alone is a hefty bill to have to pay, along with the high living expenses that's also associated with the city versus the low living expenses that's associated with living on the land. So it's all this type of stuff that we're trying to bring to the light and clear up with this podcast and show this is why we listen to steps, and that's just a brief synopsis of why family is so important. Family is a support system, family is your business, family is how you create generational wealth. Family and finances go hand in hand in so many different ways. And so it's so unfortunate that for my community, specifically the Black community, we have lost that overall. Now, we do have some Black families still, thank God and thank goodness. And it's not too late for us to reconstitute the Black family, thank goodness. But unfortunately, the past several generations, the family has really been broken and dismantled. And therefore, as a people, we haven't been able to tap into wealth as a generation. You know, we've only been able to have a few rich people that are Black, that are from our community. But when you see it time to transition onto their children and their progeny, then that's where the lapse comes in. And so now it's time for us to break that lapse and keep everything continuous and understand the importance of family, and then start to put our family back together and start to put our wealth back together as a community. Okay. And so now the next step, we only got 2 more steps to go, and that'll be 21, and we can end the podcast. All right. The next step is real estate. Okay. Because real estate, you have to understand that life is monopoly. And when you deal with finances, real estate is the end goal always. When you look at any financial portfolio, the major assets is always going to be real estate. The main reason real estate, well, there's 2 reasons that real estate is always the main asset. For one, there's only so much real estate in the world. And once all of it's gone, you can't make no more. So therefore, it's a limited asset, makes it valuable. And for 2, everything comes from the land. Everything that you see comes from the land, from the airplane to the computer to the car to everything you see. They have to get it from the land and put it together. And so that's why real estate is so important. So in business and in finances, on your financial journey, we have to remember not to get tied up into our business, or tied up into being a celebrity or the spotlight, because that's not the end goal. The end goal is to get you some real estate. And then from real estate and having a business and a trust, now you can create your own government. Because again, we're saying that we understand that society is designed to trip us up and to make us fail so that the people that are in control can benefit from our mishaps. And so in order for us to counteract that, we have to create our own governments. And so not trying to take you citizens from the government that we're already in, that's not what I mean. I mean by on a micro scale,
You can set up your own government by having your own land, and your government is only as far as the border of your property line. You see what I'm saying? After you cross over your border, then you in somebody else's government. But you at least want to be self-sufficient within your own government and have the idea of creating your own government. This is where the real estate comes in. Where now you can have your own land, you can have your own staff, just like the White House. The White House is on a plot of land, it's gated, and it has its own staff, it has its own drivers, chefs, security, everything. So that's how you want to think, and you won't be able to think like that or execute like that if you don't have the real estate. Until you buy that land, you want foreign property. When you buy that land, now you on your own property, you're on your own land. You can make your own government within your property. You see what I'm saying? So that's the importance of real estate, and also it ties into generational wealth. Um, and everything comes from the land. So if you don't have the land, then you're only halfway there. And so again, real estate is the end goal. And again, we're going to have a whole episode just about real estate and just about each one of these topics. But I'm just listing everything for the sake of the introduction, so everybody can get on board, get a grasp of what we got going on, and then do your own search. So by the time we get to that episode, you may have some information that you can share to help us too. Because again, everything doesn't work for everybody, and I don't have all the answers. So that's why I'm here, to start the community and get people to rally around this information so that we can create an ultimate blueprint for our success that works for most people. And then if it doesn't work, we have other options that they can use to make sure everybody can win. And so the last step after real estate is group economics. Okay? And now, group economics and crowdfunding is two different things. You see what I'm saying? And so, the other thing that I want you to do when you follow this podcast is I want you to follow the money. And what I mean by that is look at the people that have the money. Look at the people that are on these 400, 500 lists, 450 lists, things like that, and see what they're doing with their money. You understand? See the things that they're invested in. Okay? Take tips from the people that's already doing it. Because in order for you to succeed, you have to have a successor, meaning that you have to look at a successful model and succeed that model for your own personal success. And so that's what these steps are for. These steps are for is an expression of the success that I've seen, and this is what I'm going to use to succeed from the success that I've seen and that I was able to experience and take a part of and learn from. And so this is what the podcast is about. The same way I can study a successful model and extrapolate information from that I can use to benefit my life and then also share with others, I want everybody to be able to do that the same way. I want everybody to be able to look and find something that they feel is successful and learn from it and create a successful path for themselves. And so now I said all that to say is that when you look at the wealth, when they get money, they start doing things like what's called a think tank. Okay? So the World Economic Forum, for example, is a think tank, where now you have several wealthy people who knew that even though they're wealthy, more than some nations by themselves, group economics is how you increase and leverage that wealth and exponentially grow it. You see what I'm saying? And so now the World Economic Forum are just regular people. They aren't people that have been voted for. We didn't vote for these people. We didn't ask for no World Economic Forum. And they aren't associated with the government at all, as far as based on anything regulatory or based on any official training or programming. They have nothing to do with the government. They're their own private entity that no one voted for, that no one asked for. But yet, they influence world policy.
You understand what I'm saying? They were behind the COVID-19 situation. You see what I'm saying? They have influence on the regular everyday person's life and livelihood and ability to move around. Not because we asked them to do it, not because we voted for them to do it, not because it's necessary for them to do it, but because they wanted to have more power. They wanted to have the power to do it. And so, even though they wouldn't be able to do it by themselves, because if they try to do it as an individual, they would look like an evil villain. But if they can create group economics, they can increase their power, have more leverage on the whole world, and still maintain their face because they organized it. When you hear World Economic Forum, you don't think evil villain gang. You think, oh, World Economic Forum, that sounds good. That sounds informational, you know? But in all actuality, it's just a bunch of oligarchs that's trying to control the world with their money and their resources. You see what I'm saying? And so on the flip side of that, we want to build this community to where now, when we get a whole bunch of individuals that have these 21 steps to financial freedom and generational wealth understood and under wraps, now we can come together. You see what I'm saying? And we can make our own think tanks. And we can have our own influence. And we can change things for the better. We can change things to where we make it conducive for everybody to be successful and to be financially free and to have generational wealth. And so that's the last step. Those are the 21 steps to financial freedom and generational wealth, as seen by yours truly, the Check God, Raskara.